Violence breeds violence. Repression breeds retaliation. And only a cleansing of our whole society can remove this sickness from our souls. For there is another kind of violence, slower, but just as deadly destructive as the shot or the bomb in the night. This is the violence of institutions, indifference, inaction, and decay. This is the violence that afflicts the poor, that poisons relations between men because their skin has different colors. This is the slow destruction of a child by hunger, and schools without books, and homes without heat in the winter. This is the breaking of a man's spirit by denying him the chance to stand as a father and as a man amongst other men. But we can perhaps remember, if only for a time, that those who live with us are our brothers, and surely we can begin to work a little harder to bind up the wounds among us and to become in our hearts brothers and countrymen once again.
Hey Cody, it's Sunday. I just got done watching The Walking Dead season finale. Spoiler alert, it's very anticlimactic. Anyway, the video, if you didn't know who that was, who was speaking at the very beginning, before the intro, that was Bobby Kennedy, or his formal name, Robert F. Kennedy, but he's known as Bobby. So you gave me the topic of what inspires me. What am I inspired by? I'm actually inspired by many things, and many people. One of the first things I wanted to talk about was Bobby Kennedy. His brother, who everybody knows is John F. Kennedy, who was the 35th President of the United States, had a bunch of really good speeches, known for his speeches, especially his inaugural address. But I was more of a bigger fan of Bobby's speeches. And you know, I'm a big fan of speeches. I get a lot of inspiration out of that. I like Teddy Roosevelt's speeches. But one speech in general, a while back, just really caught me by the ear when I was watching a movie by Emilio Estevez called Bobby. It was about the assassination of Bobby Kennedy. And the soundtrack to that movie had, at the very last track, a speech called The Mindless, Menace of Violence, which was a speech that Bobby gave a couple of days after the death of Martin Luther King. I have used the Mindless, Menace of Violence speech. I've used quotes from that speech and a bunch of my different works recently, including some notes on Facebook, some of the articles that I wrote for the Daily Kent Stater up at Kent State, among other things. I have my laptop pulled up here, so I'm going to be looking off screen to read. I know you're kind of fidgety about that, but okay. Anyway, I pulled up one of my notes off Facebook where I dealt with some of Bobby's speech from the Mindless, Menace of Violence. And actually, this is a note that I wrote on Scouting. This is before they had voted to allow or change their membership standards or policies to allow all youth, and they couldn't be denied on the basis of sexual orientation. So this was written before that, and I'll start. What are we causing, though, by excluding certain people? We are pushing them from a chance of coming to know something greater than themselves. You don't want to see them involved because what? You think they will affect your children or your friends? What if they can have a profound effect on them? Bobby Kennedy once spoke about a kind of violence he called the violence of institutions. He said that this is the violence that afflicts the poor and poisons relations among men because their skin has different colors. This is the breaking of a man's spirit by denying him the chance to stand as a father and as a man amongst other men. He says this afflicts us all, stating, "For when you teach a man to hate and to fear his brother, when you teach that he is a lesser man because of his color, or his beliefs, or the policies that he pursues, when you teach that those who differ from you threaten your freedom, or your job, or your home, or your family, then you also learn to confront others not as fellow citizens, but as enemies. To be met not with cooperation, but with conquest. To be subjugated, and to be mastered. We learn at the last to look at our brothers as alien men with whom we share a city, but not a community, men bound to us in common dwelling, but not in a common effort. We learn to share only a common fear, only a common desire to retreat from each other, only a common impulse to meet disagreement with force." Bobby spoke these words in a time of civil unrest, one day after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., 2 months before he too would be gunned down by an assassin's bullet. And then at the very end here, I had one more quote from him. "We must admit the vanity of our false distinctions, the false distinctions among men, and learn to find our own advancement and search for the advancement of all. Our lives on this planet are too short, the work to be done is too great, to let this spirit flourish any longer in this land of ours. Surely we can learn at the least to look around at those of us of our fellow man, and surely we can begin to work a little harder to bind up the wounds among us, and to become in our hearts brothers and countrymen once again." Another thing that inspired me at least today, since today's Sunday, I went to church today here in town. Since I'm in town, I was able to go to church. I go to the Presbyterian church, as you know. And today's service was actually interesting to me. We were talking about the blind man, Jesus' healing of the blind man, and how the man wasn't blind just because he was a sinner. He was blind so that others may see God's work through him, and Jesus' work through him. But he tried to correlate that blindness and that service through movies. I think I wrote a note on it. I didn't write it's not like a Facebook note, but I wrote this because afterwards we had a dinner. It was kind of a lunch kind of thing. So while I was there, I was writing stuff, just what my takeaway from the sermon was, and I'm going to be looking off screen again, so I can read this. I actually wrote this on the iPad, but I had to email it to my computer so I can read it while I'm filming on the iPad. So yeah, behind the scenes. Church was interesting today. Pastor John, or Reverend John, whatever you want to call him, was talking about Jesus' healing of the blind man, and how neither he nor his mother were sinners in the case of his blindness. That in fact the man was blind so that he and others may see the work of God through his blindness. It was interesting in that John began to relate the blindness and service through movies. And the first movie he mentioned was 1997's Contact, starring Jodie Foster and Tom Skerritt. The movie, which is based off of Carl Sagan's 1980 science fiction novel, tells the story of Jodie Foster's character, who is searching for evidence of the existence of extraterrestrial life. The correlation being drawn is referenced near the end of the film, when Foster's character is given a chance to travel to another planet, in another galaxy, in another part of the universe, to interact with a newly discovered life form. This only occurs for a brief time before she is whisked back to Earth, where it seems as if nothing has happened. When questioned at the end of the film about if she believes there is other life out there, all she is able to say is that she can only believe so, and that she's here to continue the good work, so that others may begin to see, and those that have ears may hear. What's funny, however, is that one of the characters in the movie is actually blind, or playing a blind person. And that character's name, coincidence or not, his name was Kent. It's stuff like that that really kind of makes me think, especially when I watched the movie recently, and we make a correlation to the actual sermon, and I was like, huh. That's a bunch of stuff that's coming together. It seems like a little bit more than a coincidence to me. Some other people that kind of inspire me. Since yesterday you went on and on and on about David McWayne, and about his music and his writing and stuff, I figured I will take some other things. So this is a book that I've had for a couple months now. It's My Two Moms by Zach Walls. This guy right there is the founder of Scouts for Equality, and actually in this book, he structures the book in 12 different chapters, and each chapter is titled after one of the points of the Scout Law. And the first chapter is called Be Prepared, and the last chapter is Do a Good Turn Daily, thus being the motto and slogan of the Boy Scouts of America. And he's an Eagle Scout who a couple years ago in the Iowa State Legislature, they were optioning the allowing same-sex unions and marriage in the state, and he actually went to the legislature to speak in favor of it since he grew up with two moms. So he's a guy that inspires me because he's a scout, he's still a scout. He's a scout. He's like a year or two younger than me. He has his own business. He goes around speaking to different organizations. He started an organization that's trying to be all-inclusive of scouts everywhere. So that's somebody that inspires me. That's something that I would want to have my life modeled after. Also, it's not just people and things that inspire me. It's also places. So I'm looking through this real quick. I don't know if you can make out what that is, but that is Wizard Island at Crater Lake. As you know, 7 years ago this year, we went on a trip out west, and one of the stops we made was in Crater Lake, Oregon, which, after my visit there, became one of my favorite places in the U.S. If I could live anywhere outside of the state of Ohio, if I had to choose anywhere else, it would be either West Virginia, Montana, or Crater Lake, Oregon. Because it's when I was sitting on the ledge of Crater Lake, it was kind of a spiritual awakening kind of thing, where you sit there and you can think, you can reminisce, you can feel alive. I don't know if you can see behind me, but over my shoulder there used to be a bookshelf right there where the hooks are there and there. But up above there, right there, that is a John Glenn pennant. There, that is a postcard from the Henry Ford Museum up in Dearborn, Michigan, of the Ford Lincoln Continental that JFK was assassinated in. And then up here, these are envelopes in German, and I want to say Spanish. They're two Germany envelopes. They have German postal stamps, like actual rubber stamps. And there's an Argentine envelope. And then below that, there's the coincidence thing between JFK and Abraham Lincoln. But then down there below, of course, they have the political Beanie Babies. And then right here, this is a popcorn tin that has JFK's face right there. And then up there, that's a magnet from the 6th Floor Museum in Dallas, Texas, where our friends the Bennetts visited, and they brought some stuff back for me. You can't see it, but on top of that bookshelf there's actually a JFK mouse pad. So one person that really inspires me a lot is JFK. His presidency, his life in general, his speeches. So he's one person that's inspired me. I just thought I would include that in there since it's kind of in the foreground of this video. Cody, since I started you out with Bobby, I think I'm going to lead you out with Bobby as well. Lincoln the Moflagon. This is a speech that he gave in South Africa, I think in 1968, called the Day of Affirmation Speech. So, peace. Today is Sunday, and I will see you tomorrow.